Welcome to Inside Games, the only gaming news show brave enough to say the multiplayer hero shooter scene is way too overcrowded.
Yeah, and yet it seems like companies are just lining up at the buffet for a sweet slice of that games of service money pie.
And that's just infinite money, right? But maybe there's not a lot of pie left to go around. The beta for Concord, Sony's new hero shooter and latest foray into the games as a service market, just wrapped up.
And let's see how it did.
All right, how'd it do?
Brooklyn, just zoom into my hand and then have bad, like explode over my palm or something.
The numbers on Steam were not promising, peaking at less than 2,400 players and falling below 50 players on its final day. That's horrible.
Yeah, that's like can't even find a match. Horrible. Eesh, that's
Man.
not good for a free open beta. And really not good when you consider that the game's not free. It launches next month for $40.
If you haven't been following, Concord is a 5v5 hero shooter where players take control of one of many free gunners, each with different abilities.
Yeah, it might have some aesthetic similarities to things that have been popular in the last decade. It's a new IP. Yeah, I guess. That was shown off in Sony's recent State of Play, and based on the initial trailer, players thought it was an adventure game, and I can't blame them for that. They quickly turned on it, though, when it was revealed to be a 5v5 FPS.
Yeah, Paul Tassi of Forbes called Concord, quote, a competent hero shooter. Wow. High praise. That's releasing in a crowded market of hero shooters, and, quote, it does not do enough to stand out enough from the crowd it's competing against.
Yeah, accurate. Others were a little more positive. IGN called it a sweaty, gun-toting good time. Man, that's aiming for some back-of-the-box real estate, isn't it? Sure. And that they could, quote, easily see it competing with the genre's giants.
No, absolutely not.
I could easily see it. Theoretically, someday, Bruce, I can visualize it.
Maybe in 4 years' time when it's free. Kotaku also liked it, calling it, quote, Overwatch plus Destiny with a sprinkle of Call of Duty.
Why not throw in some Minecraft or Mario Kart for good measure? Sure. I'm being really cynical about, I don't know, some of these quotes are getting me. At least they did admit that the game could be a tough sell in 2024, writing, there are so many good free-to-play PvP games out there right now that aren't exclusive to PS5 and PC. Why would somebody spend $40 to play a new one?
That's the question. Concord is scheduled to release August 23rd for PC and PlayStation 5. And again, as of now, it's going to cost $40. I spent $60 on it already because I was like, well, I'll pre-order it. Maybe it'll probably be pretty popular, right? Nope. This is going to be a tough sell. Competitors, we got Overwatch 2. We got the Marvel Rivals beta happening right this very second. And those are both free, so this is rough.
And have a little more brand recognition already. They've already kind of got footholds.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like it's, another live service dud for Sony, which really has been chasing that model since it acquired Bungie a few years ago.
Now, we should qualify that these are only Steam numbers. We don't know how the game did on the PlayStation 5. And honestly, if Sony made up the numbers on the PS5, then they're probably going to feel fine about it.
Yeah, but as some have noted, Helldivers 2 actually had more players on Steam than on PlayStation.
Oh, wow.
So Steam numbers are important, and even if they're a fraction of PS5, they're still pretty indicative, I think, of how people in general are receiving the game.
So by comparison, Apex Legends hit 1 million players in its first 8 hours when it launched in 2019, and then 10 million players in its first 3 days.
Overwatch's open beta in 2016, I feel like a skeleton, brought in a total of 9.7 million players across PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC.
Yeah, so even if Concord's PlayStation 5 numbers were incredible, it isn't really going to do anywhere close to any of those numbers that we saw previously.
Yeah, gosh, I don't even know if there's that many PS5s out there. Oh, there are, but... Yeah, the cool reception here, the story's not over yet. It might launch okay, but... The cool reception so far seems to follow a pattern we've seen of Sony having trouble making a really well-received, solid live service game.
Yeah, apart from Helldivers 2, obviously. So over the last few years, Sony has made several grandiose statements about its plans for live service games, and man, all that sweet cash that a hit could bring in. We know how it can work.
Yeah, to their credit, they've been very explicit about what they're doing and why. And it did represent a pretty massive change in strategy for PlayStation, which up until now has kind of built its brand around huge premium single-player art award-winning prestige games.
Yep, but they appear to go all in on that new games as a service direction.
Hey, good games are good games, man. I don't have to cry to have fun. Yes, this was actually pretty soon after acquiring Destiny developer Bungie. Sony president Hiroki Totoki said that they would launch more than 10 live service games by the end of their 2025 fiscal year.
And you know what, though? They're doing it.
They got to get that number up, I guess. We got to hit our quota.
It was clear that Sony had acquired Bungie, in large part, for its knowledge about games and service games, because Destiny probably is the, epitome of these games.
Yeah. The trick is always, can you repeat it, though? We'll see. Last year, PlayStation Studios boss Herman Hulse said that Bungie had become involved in all of its in-development live service games.
Hulse said that, quote, the learnings from Bungie have been very substantial in many areas, adding that, quote, when you're developing live service titles, you require capabilities that you don't have when you're working on single-player, narrative-driven games.
I mean, he's absolutely right. I thought he was referring to, like, transactional stuff, like Bungie's ability to charge money across platforms and have redemptions work. You don't need that for a single-player game at all. So it was really nice to have that technical experience, but maybe he was just talking about the actual game design of the games themselves, too. Either way, Bungie's involvement didn't turn out to be the golden thumb. Golden touch? That's the Midas thing. The golden touch that I guess Sony expected it to be. By November of last year, that launch slate got trimmed down pretty significantly. Totoki said that Sony would instead aim for 6 online multiplayer games released by the end of Sony's 2025 fiscal year.
Okay, he said at the time, quote, mid to long term, we want to expand this kind of service. That's the unchanged policy of our company, even though they went from 10 games to 6. Well, whatever.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's trimmed down even more by now. More troubles followed. A month later, Sony subsidiary Naughty Dog announced that the Last of Us multiplayer component had been canceled. Yeah,
in a statement, the studio wrote, quote, to release and support The Last of Us online, we'd have to put all our studio resources behind supporting post-launch content for years to come, severely impacting development on future single-player games. And I also think a lot of rumors were that Bungie got a hold of The Last of Us online and was like, this is not going to work. And then they kind of shut it down. Now, it is weird that they didn't just put it out there and be like, hey, it's $20. Give it a shot. But maybe the servers cost too much, or I don't know.
Yeah, try and recoup some of their costs. This is true. What they said is true. It's a massive investment, and it takes years and years of dedication, and that's money that's getting burned the whole while. Yeah. And you're just praying and hoping that one of your updates finally gets people in to spend money. It's just, I don't believe that Sony didn't know that until just now. So it's weird to me that they pulled the gun, and surely they knew. Surely Bungie came in, and the first thing they said was, you want to do what? Do you have any idea? Well, after they were acquired. Once the check cleared, they were like, there's no way this game's going to work. Nope, because you didn't start 10 years ago.
Right.
So it's interesting, and it's kind of obvious that we're in this situation now. It's just odd that nobody seemed to see it coming, or maybe a couple of executives were a little blinded by the revenue figures they were seeing.
They were seeing those numbers go up, the fake numbers, by the way, potential numbers, and they went, they literally saw dollar signs. So obviously we haven't talked about Helldivers 2 much this episode, but Helldivers 2 was a massive live service breakout hit this year. Everybody knows, pretty much everybody bought it. It's just been, hundreds of thousands of people were playing, but it really hasn't lasted right now. As of earlier this month, it's lost about 90% of its PC players. Now, I think the game is going to go in waves. Like when they release content, people will come back and play for a month or two, and it'll be like a live service game. And I do think Helldivers 2 is a good game. So I don't think it's gone forever.
No, absolutely not. And I think it's understood when you're operating that product and that kind of business that's the nature of the business. And we're starting to see some success stories of people that have stuck with it. No Man's Sky is currently on an incredible upswing thanks to its recent Worlds Part 1 update.
Yeah, and just this morning, Sony announced Helldivers 2's first big update titled Escalation of Freedom, which releases on August 6th. And you could bet your ass I'm going to be there playing. I can't wait.
Yeah, me too. I think that's just what people were waiting for, and that's the nature of service games. You have to have developers just turning the crank nonstop. So we'll have to see if there's enough sausage that Sony can cram in Concord to make people want to play it, or if they're just going to cut it loose, which is going to put them in a real weird position if they've asked people to pay for it and it shuts down in a month or two.
Lawrence, you know me. You know that I stream a lot of video games, and you know that I like video games. I really do. I did not like Concord. I played this game and thought that there were actual core problems with the gameplay when I played for 4 hours or whatever. I just don't think that if they keep trying to charge $40 for it, it's going to work. I think Sony came in And they saw, I bet this game was free to play until they saw what happened with Helldivers. I think they saw Helldivers succeed at the $40 price point, and they went, well, Concord is a $40 game. We could charge $40 for that. I think that's what happened. And now Sony is absolutely learning this lesson, and they're going to have to make this free to play, and they're going to have to do it very, very quick. I think Sony is pretty, hold on, what's the word? I think Sony's pretty arrogant when it comes to what they think they can do. And Concord is kind of a slap in the face, and I'm glad it is, because it's not, in my opinion, not a very good video game.
Damn. Yeah, it's rare to hear you speak so negatively about something. And that's weird, because I'm usually the cynical one, and I actually found some things to like about Concord, so we kind of flipped on this one. I think it tried to do some new mechanical things with the structure of a round-based team shooter. I like the idea that support structures persist between matches. I think it adds an interesting layer, almost like a RTS layer of like, you build your defenses in your infrastructure and then you attack. I liked the weird crew buff thing, even though it's impossible to understand. I thought that added a lot of strategy to the order in which you choose the classes you play, and actually adds a lot of like team synergy of everybody rotating around roles. Neat ideas, but they weren't super well communicated in the beta, so I don't think anybody even understood them. And yeah, I think the comparison to Helldivers is really interesting, because Helldivers has a lot of artistic vibrancy. It's funny. It's unique. It's got lots of parody, which, at least as an American, I am desperate to laugh at how stupid some of this shit is sometimes. Meanwhile, Concord is the safest thing ever in terms of its aesthetic. Its characters are like just I don't know, forgettable, I guess.
Absolutely, they are, yeah.
I don't want anyone that worked on it to feel bad about that, but when I play it, it does feel like a product that was made to sell, not because anyone had like a brilliant bursting idea. They were just said, you make this game, and okay, so they looked at what's hot, Guardians and Marvel, and they basically made a whole game that's that, which sucks because I really like the overlays, the fonts and aesthetic is pretty cool.
Oh man, yeah, the art direction, the UI is great.
So it's I guess soulless is the word people use. I think that's a bit harsh, but you have to have soul if you want to poke through and get people's attention. And I think we know that it doesn't, or it didn't already, and that's troublesome. So I don't know. Maybe if they cook on it for another year and kind of revamp the art style and change the tone and attitude of all the characters, then you might be cooking with something. But for now, it's just so middle of the road, and you can't afford to be that in such a crowded space. I'm curious, Bruce, how you feel about this, though. If Bungie shut down, this is, theoretical, but if Bungie said that the Last of Us game was below their quality bar, but Concord was above, man, how rough was Last of Us multiplayer?
Right? Well, that's the thing. Last of Us is an established IP with Sony. For them to shut it down must have been the worst thing in the world. I can't imagine. Last of Us has made, probably billions of dollars for Sony at this point. So how could they shut down The Last of Us Online and then be like, maybe they just maybe Bungie never even got their hands on Concord. Maybe it was just sort of like, just push it through because we acquired this studio back in 2023 that they had never made a video game before. So we gotta make some money. So maybe that's what happened. I really don't know, because just release Last of Us Online, give that a shot versus this. In my again, all of your points, by the way, Lawrence, absolutely true. All the RTS elements and leaving the stuff on the map and the crew bonuses were innovative. I appreciated that. I just thought the core gameplay itself was bad. I thought the netcode seemed really bad, and there's hit reg was bad. Those sorts of things. So I do think that they really can salvage this video game. But it's going to take them a while, and they need a player base that's going to play for free. So they can't sell this game at $40. They can't.
They can try. Yeah. I do want, to your point, I wonder if it's, instead of thinking about what they could do in the market or what their competition was, maybe it was just they were working backwards from the money. They were like, well, we're this invested. We're predicting this many sales. We know these many people will buy it no matter what if we put it out. So how do we make that back? And they landed on $40. Yeah, that's a rough situation to be in, because I think kind of like they were looking at with Last of Us, if they want to stick with this, they're looking at a mammoth investment on top of what they've already spent. So it's very appealing to cut and run, but that's also a very weighty decision to make too. It's a tough situation to be in.
On both sides here, we get lots of big deep because I really do feel bad for the developers, but I mean, the game needs work. It really does. So we have some incredibly discerning, high skill patrons in our Inside Games Patreon, and they don't need work. We just want to shout them out for supporting the show and being absolutely perfect. Zach the Hack, Danny Pudding, Jose Diaz, and the Mr. Estrada.
And let me tell you, the only thing that would get me back into Concord is if my favorite patrons were added as free gunners. So if I see them in an update, you better believe I'm locking in as soon as I can. Jared Watkins, Old Baby Leg, Ian McGee, and DJ Kento. You guys have great skills. Thank you.